This is the last video of the series. It's also the last figure in the book. As mentioned, the book includes well over 100 figures and parts and close to 100 tables. Most tables and a little over a dozen figures were skipped because the series was meant to introduce and enhance the book. My theory is completely described in Chapter 2. The following 3 chapters were attempts to build on that theory. Figure 60A illustrates the basic theory, producing 4 major art-related disciplines based on elements not shown. It's to contrast the gray area shown in Figure 60B. I started writing the book before my theory was fully developed. Early in the book, I mentioned uncertainty with what I call the gray area. By the end of writing the book, it became a little more clear to me what the gray area was about. It's about the vagueness in the concept of natural. Natural is one of those concepts that most people assume are more developed than they actually are. The closest thing to its opposite is the concept of synthesis. But synthesis is natural behavior. Some even say that the supernatural is natural. In other words, everything is natural. Accepting everything as natural is not a problem for me, but is a problem for my model using the term natural science. There's no distinction between social and natural. I considered using the more popular synonym, physical science. The reason I didn't use it was because it sounds too much like physics, the more reductionist subset. By the time I was finishing up my writing, I realized that the concept of intentions mattered more to my model than the concept of synthesis. The biggest difference between natural and synthetic is intended acts. This allowed me to distinguish natural science from descriptive technophilosophy. It made the gray area not so gray. Both innate and synthesized products are natural because human behavior, technology, is natural. The gray area in between can be divided by unintended and intended products of nature. This plant is unintended unless it's deliberately planted and nurtured. By unintended, I don't mean undesired. It just means an inevitable consequence of the event, like a byproduct. It distinguishes physics from psychophysics, aka mental behavior. Perhaps social science should be renamed mental science to contrast. The distinction between prescriptive and descriptive technophilosophy is clearly described in the book, but not through SOA symbols. The partial element means different things between the subdisciplines. In prescriptive technophilosophy, technology is a planned method. In descriptive technophilosophy, the method itself is studied objectively. The objective study includes both intended and unintended subjects. The wording used here isn't the exact wording I use in the book, making this figure 60C-ish. I'm not so attached to the labels as long as we agree on the concepts. Figure 60D is also an ish for the same reason. I call it a compromise because it's as much as I'm willing to adjust my model to accommodate differences in labels. There are 4 rules that I won't compromise on that have to do with how these concepts are understood. My theory depends on these somewhat controversial rules. Number 1. The golden contrast is critical to defining art. You can read about it in the book if you haven't already figured it out. But it doesn't completely define art. That's why I define art with elements that include the next rule. Number 2. Hume's guillotine is true. Number 3. Anything falsifiable can be scientifically studied. Number 4. Science is a subset of art. That last one might be the most controversial. These rules translate to a model that's close enough to my SOA model. For now, I call those Cephanisms. You don't need to separate technology from art to understand why science is a subset, and you don't need to call physical science natural. This concludes the entire video series for the figures. I may have more videos depending on feedback and questions I get from either the book or the videos. I might consider using feedback in the future Kindle version of the book. I'll continue to link videos from other content providers to this channel as I find them relevant. I hope you are looking forward to them and have enjoyed the series. Thanks for watching.